It's the end of the year and time for everyone to look back at everything they watched in 2024. Unlike last year where I only watched a couple of new releases in 2023 and so instead listed the best movies that I watched that year released anytime, I actually did watch a bunch of movies released in 2024. So I'll be ranking all of the new releases that I watched this year from worst to best. For clarity, a couple of the films on here are listed as 2023 in some places like IMDb or Letterboxd, but really only screened at a festival or two in 2023 and had their full release in 2024, and that's what I'm trying to go by. And I'll also just quickly acknowledge that when I can tell that a movie is definitely not for me, I don't bother watching it typically. I'm not the type of critic who watches absolutely everything, or the type that goes out of their way to watch movies they know they'll hate. So yeah, Wicked looks like it might be the worst movie I've ever seen in my life, but I'm not ever going to watch it, and you can't make me. Along with this film ranking, I'm also going to be ranking all of the video games that I played this year in a separate video, so stay tuned for that one. And if you're a supporter of the Brickwall Patreon, you can expect a brand new bonus patron-exclusive video coming your way soon too. Oh, and in case you missed it or you're new here, I was finally able to put up my giant top 250 films of all time video recently after battling YouTube's broken copyright system for months on end, so go check that video out after this one. Now, on to the ranking, starting off at the very bottom at number 30. Maxxxine. This movie pissed me the hell off. I thought X was fine and Pearl was pretty good, but Maxxxine got on my nerves right from the jump and only got more grating and stupid the longer it went on. The tone is messy beyond belief, the writing and character work are frankly baffling, and the way the thing is constantly referencing movies in the most intrusive, obnoxious ways possible drove me crazy. Hated this thing, the worst of the year of what I saw, and the only 2024 release that I gave a half-star review to on Letterboxd at Brickwall_. Number 29, In a Violent Nature. This got a lot of buzz on the festival circuit, but it's pretty hard to see why. It has some shred of an interesting idea as a modern slasher where we follow the killer exclusively, but it doesn't fully commit to that concept, and it also spends a sizable portion of its runtime just killing time instead of people. I give it credit for having something of an interesting idea, 1.5 good kills, and like maybe one funny moment, but I hated everything else about it, especially the miscalculated ending and most of the cinematography choices. Number 28, Mads. This one has such a cool premise that it sadly does nothing with. Mads is basically a zombie movie presented as a single unbroken shot, less stylized with hidden cuts than something like Birdman, and more in line with the one-take bank heist movie Victoria. Now, I'm in the minority, it seems, on Victoria, but I thought that one sucked too and didn't find it impressive at all, so maybe if you were blown away by Victoria, you might like Mads as well. On a technical level, it's fine, but on a substance level, it started out decent and steadily got worse and worse and worse throughout its entire runtime as it kills time, focusing on the least interesting elements at play, leaves important story threads hanging, and pivots focus to follow some truly terrible acting in the later stages of the film. It doesn't rise above or even live up to its gimmick, but it is still one of the more interesting films to come out this year, so I wouldn't begrudge you a curiosity watch if your interest is piqued despite my admonishment of it. Number 27, A Real Pain. What a disappointment this one was. I'm definitely in the minority on A Real Pain as it's been quite well received, but I found this to be quite insufferable. I really like Kieran Culkin in general, but I could not stand this character, or any of the other characters, or the script in general. It left such a gross taste in my mouth by the end. There might be a full video on this one hitting the channel at some point, so stay tuned for that. Number 26, VHS Beyond. The VHS series is full of junk all across the board, but this is definitely one of the weaker overall entries. It has a couple of the worst tapes of the whole franchise. But there's still at least one pretty decent tape in here, so it isn't a total waste of time. Number 25, The Beekeeper. Dumb as all hell, almost to the extent that it becomes enjoyably bad, but I don't think it quite gets there. And it's really hard to tell just how self-aware it is. It seems like it has to be at least a little self-aware, but not enough. Number 24, Cuckoo. There are lots of fun ideas in here, but they didn't mesh at all for me, and the narrative is just such a nonsensical mess. What happened to the dog that was in the one scene and then never mentioned again? Why is this horror movie so bloodless and tame every step of the way? Lots of directorial decisions that didn't work for me, and basically none that did. Number 23, Daddy's Head. For having such a goofy-ass title, this movie takes itself way too seriously. It comes close to having some creepy visuals, but in the end, it all feels like retreading territory that has been done significantly better elsewhere. It's another of those hereditary wannabe grief horror movies that became a dime a dozen and mostly all blend together. The film has this extremely frustrating tendency to cut away to the next scene anytime it's finally starting to get interesting. Withholding everything worthwhile is not what people are talking about when they praise the subtlety and restraint of a movie like Hereditary. Number 22, Dune 2. People might riot over this placement, I think, perhaps, I don't know. I'm sure it will be near the top, if not in the number one spot on a lot of people's best of 2024 lists, judging by how most people talk about it, but I just found Dune 2 to be a miserable slog. Spectacle does not do it for me as a film goer, and Dune 2 has pretty much nothing but spectacle. There's no substance here. Only paper-thin characters, unbelievable dynamics between said characters, and annoyingly miscalculated performances, especially from Austin Butler, who earned his way onto my list of actors to actively avoid in the future with this performance. Number 21, Hundreds of Beavers. This movie started playing in festivals as far back as 2022, but didn't get its full release until 2024. And it's being sent out as a 4-year consideration film for 2024 Best of the Year lists and whatnot. But it's not one of the best of the year to me. I was really optimistic going into this and expected to love it, but I just didn't. So many of its jokes just didn't land for me, and the overall shtick, though initially novel, wore out its welcome exceedingly quickly. Things got gratingly repetitive long before the midpoint, and I was also put off by the lead's performance and, frankly, by how distracting some of the visual effects were, which I tried to overlook, but that's easier said than done when almost every shot is a special effects shot of some kind. Some of the effects are clearly intentionally bad and have some charm to them, but others are just distracting, full stop. Wanted to like this one, but it didn't work for me. Number 20, Strange Darling. This one was also listed as a 2023 film, but only screened at one single festival in 2023, with its full release on VOD and limited theaters in 2024. Strange Darling blew up a bit, at least in comparison to other films of its scale. Helped in part by some good word of mouth, the weirdness of character actor Giovanni Ribisi serving as its cinematographer, and the red letter media bump. I enjoyed Strange Darling for its creative structuring and moments of subversion, but wasn't as wild about it as many others. It felt rather held back in some areas and dropped the ball a bit on the plotting of other moments, and it had a few narrative and stylistic elements that flat out didn't work for me, but it was still a decent time, and it's good to see a smaller film getting more attention. Number 19, Last Stop in Yuma County. This is another one that's listed on Letterboxd and IMDb as a 2023 release, but it really only played at 2 festivals in 2023 and had its real release in 2024. I had to check this one out because I love Jim Cummings and will follow him anywhere. I'd love to work with that guy someday. Last Stop in Yuma County is one that Cummings acted in and executive produced, but did not write or direct, unlike Thunder Road or The Wolf of Snow Hollow, for example. This is a small-scale thriller that has an old-school vibe in a good way, but which subverts genre expectations in a couple of key ways. Great performances across the board, not just from Cummings, but also from the likes of Richard Brake, Gene Jones, and Faison Love, who all stand out in their roles. This is a film that keeps its aspirations small and succeeds in what it's going for. Number 18, Look Back. If you've been hanging around this channel and my side channel for a while, then you know that anime had been a long-time gap for me, but no longer. My partner is a huge anime fan and has been helping me fill in that gap, including checking out Look Back during its one-day theatrical screening here in the States. It's a sweet and poignant story that really captures the trials and tribulations, but also the joy and passion behind creativity. What holds it back is really just its length, which is simply a little bit too short. There's room to go so much deeper with these characters and ideas, but the film sticks a bit too rigidly to its focused A to B plot and wraps things up while leaving a bit too much on the plate. Number 17, Oddity. One of the more unique spins on the old haunted object horror niche, and also one of the more effective. It's a shame that the ending is such a letdown because the vast majority of Oddity is extremely creepy and filled with strong atmosphere and scares. Number 16, I Saw the TV Glow. While not all of its creative choices worked for me, I love how bold and truly original I Saw the TV Glow is. And its allegorical side is beautifully implemented. If some of the narrative dials were tweaked just a tiny bit and a different ending were in place, this would really sing. Looking forward to whatever Schoenbrun's next film is, because the leap in quality between We're All Going to the World's Fair and this is extremely promising. Number 15, Love Lies Bleeding. While its ending didn't completely work for me, I appreciated how big of a swing it was, and I quite loved the rest of Love Lies Bleeding. Katie O'Brien better become the star of some badass action franchise straight away, because she is tough as hell in this, while delivering a great dramatic performance at the same time. And Rose Glass's direction is creative and merges genres in interesting ways. I highly recommend her first feature film, Saint Maud, if you enjoyed Love Lies Bleeding. Number 14, Furiosa. It's hard to live up to the majesty that is Fury Road, and Furiosa doesn't quite get there. But it's still a really fun time and an impressive feat of filmmaking and world building that sadly failed miserably at the box office for some reason that I don't understand. Furiosa exchanges the non-stop momentum of Fury Road for a greater emphasis on character and especially world building, which isn't exactly a net positive exchange, but it makes for a quite different feeling and still engaging ride. There's a widespread misconception that Fury Road used no CGI, or at least far less than it really did, but while Furiosa didn't exactly go overboard on the CGI, some of the effects do look distractingly bad, and it's certainly not implemented anywhere near as well as in Fury Road. But it's not enough to hold the film back much for me. The action set pieces are still thrilling, and this world is still so much fun to explore. Hopefully this isn't the last trip out to this Australian wasteland, but with those box office numbers, it might be, at least for a while. Number 13, Monkey Man. Dev Patel jumps into the director's chair for his feature-length debut and does not at all play it safe, pulling quadruple duty as a co-writer, producer, and star, in addition to directing. Patel delivers an effective action thriller with creative set pieces, fun fights, and meaningful social commentary, plus some of the coolest trans representation ever put to screen. Number 12, Exhuma. I will watch anything with Min-Sik Choi of Oldboy fame, and that policy has led me to plenty of great places, including Exhuma. This supernatural horror film about exhuming graves goes in wild and unpredictable directions, taking huge swings that mostly hit the mark. The structure is a bit odd and could leave some people cold with the way that it's bifurcated and feels a bit longer than it really is, but the bizarreness of the proceedings and some surprisingly clever and nuanced social commentary more than compensate for any structural shortcomings in my eyes. Number 11, Rebel Ridge. I was worried about Rebel Ridge after its extremely troubled production, which included extensive delays and reshoots, and even a high-profile recasting of the main character when John Boyega exited the project partway through the shoot. But I'm happy to report that Rebel Ridge came together in the end. Even though he was a replacement, it feels like this role was tailor-made for Aaron Pierre. He is phenomenal in this part, and immediately became someone that I will be keeping a close eye on. Between this troubled production and his unceremonious departure from True Detective Season 3, I was a bit concerned for Jeremy Saulnier's career, but Rebel Ridge instantly assuaged those concerns. He's back and in his prime, and I can't wait to see what he makes next. And we're into the top 10 now. Number 10 is Sleep. Released in South Korea and plenty other parts of the world in 2023, but didn't make it to the US until 2024. Sleep got onto my radar when it received a glowing endorsement from none other than Bong Joon-ho, shining light on a great horror thriller from an exciting new South Korean director, making their debut after previously serving as Bong Joon-ho's assistant director on Okja back in 2017. Sleep has a clever premise that it's surprising more horror films haven't capitalized on, someone seemingly becoming someone or something else in their sleep, an extreme magnification of sleepwalking. The horror and thriller components are extremely well done, and the boundless chemistry between the two leads seriously elevates the proceedings. Number 9, Memoir of a Snail, a new stop-motion film from the man behind the excellent Mary and Max. Memoir of a Snail is heartbreaking and hilarious simultaneously. My partner Gray and I reviewed this one over on the side channel, Brickwall Unplugged, so check out our review to hear more. Number 8, Kinds of Kindness. Yorgos Lanthimos keeps cranking them out and keeps hitting home runs, this time working wonders within the anthology vignette film format. which I always love in theory, but I'm often disappointed by in practice. Kinds of Kindness was a welcome return to Lanthimos' less accessible, more confrontational roots with the likes of Dogtooth, but with the stylistic sensibilities he picked up along the way from his movies like Poor Things and The Favorite. I've enjoyed all iterations of Lanthimos' career, and I can't wait to keep following his prolific output. Truly one of our most exciting modern filmmakers. Number 7, Civil War. Perhaps the year's most misunderstood film. It's been frustrating to watch the discourse surrounding Civil War, especially the never-ending clown show cavalcade of people saying that the film chose to say nothing, which is so far from the truth. Civil War has a ton to say, just not what most people were expecting it to say. This is such a thematically rich film on top of being an engaging road trip thriller on the surface level. My partner Gray is working on a video essay for Civil War, so stay tuned for that. It'll dive much deeper. Number 6, Longlegs. I'm so glad that Oz Perkins finally had his big breakthrough hit. I thought for a brief moment that Gretel and Hansel might have been the more mainstream breakthrough that he was looking for, but then that one ended up leaving theaters pretty quickly and seemingly flying under the radar a bit too. I hope some of the folks who were surprised and impressed by Longlegs go back and check out The Black Coat's Daughter and I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House, the latter of which I am an ardent defender of, despite tons of negative reviews calling it boring. Longlegs is creepy and gripping in the way that a great serial killer thriller with a touch of supernatural often is, nailing its style and atmosphere like Perkins always does, while delivering a bit more of a focused plot that works well and leads to memorable performances from Maika Monroe and Nick Cage. Number 5, Armand. This is one that Gray and I have been planning on reviewing on Brickwall Unplugged for a little while now, but things keep either getting in the way or taking priority. We'll still get to it eventually, I think, so stay tuned for that. All I'll say here for the time being is that Armand stars the same woman as the worst person in the world, whose name I cannot pronounce, but I'm becoming a huge fan of. She is, again, excellent here, and Armand is a gripping drama throughout its entire duration, packed with far more variety than you might expect. There's a lot to unpack here, so I'll save that for the full review over on the second channel. Make sure you subscribe to that one. Brickwall Unplugged. Number 4, Seed of the Sacred Fig. This is what I've been calling the most important film of the year, though not quite my favorite. Gray and I reviewed this one already over on the Brickwall Unplugged channel, so go check that video out to hear both of our thoughts. Number 3, Red Rooms. One of the most surprising films of the year for me. Dramatically and thematically impeccable, while being incredibly unsettling and disturbing, yet also commendably restrained all at once. It's another that's listed as 2023 in some places, but it only reached the States in 2024. And it's also another one that Gray and I reviewed over on that Brickwall Unplugged channel, so go check out that full review to hear more. Number 2, Anora. If you're a supporter of the Brickwall Pictures Patreon and watched the patron-exclusive bonus video where I go through the runners-up to my top 250 films of all time video, then you've already heard me mention that I thought Sean Baker's career was still on the incline and that his real masterpiece was yet to come. I wrote that video before Anora won the Palme d'Or at Cannes and recorded it before it had received its wide release. Now, having seen it, I can confirm that Anora was the Sean Baker masterpiece that I was waiting for. What an incredible piece of work that synthesizes all of Baker's narrative and stylistic fixations into a tight and cohesive package that is thrilling, hilarious, and emotionally true every step of the way. Anora was extremely close to snatching the top spot on this list, but there was one film that just barely edged it out. And real quick, before we get to number 1, I want to briefly acknowledge some other big films from this year that I haven't had a chance to see yet, either because they aren't out yet or I just haven't had the chance. And I believe these maybe have a chance of doing well in the ranking once I eventually do see them, or I might end up hating them, as 1 or 2 of these have been extremely divisive. This includes The Brutalist, Megalopolis, Nosferatu, A Complete Unknown, A Different Man, and a couple of somewhat smaller films that are on my radar like Bird, The End, and Thelma. Okay, now, number 1, The Substance. I had seen Coralie Fargeet's first film, Revenge, back when it came out in 2017, and it didn't completely work for me, but I thought it showed promise. The Substance far exceeded the potential displayed in Revenge, and went so far above and beyond. This is the kind of monumental leap in quality between first and second film that we don't see often, like John McTiernan going from Nomads to Predator, or Paul Thomas Anderson going from Hard Eight to Boogie Nights. The Substance became my favorite of the year the instant I saw it, and nothing has dethroned it since, though Anora did come pretty close. It's a special film, and the best of 2024 to me. Gray and I did a full review for this one too over on the side channel Brickwall Unplugged, so go check that out to hear more. Thanks for watching, and again, I'm also putting out a ranking of the best and worst video games that I played in 2024, so stay tuned for that video coming soon. And there's also going to be a brand new bonus video available exclusively to Patreon supporters, so if you want to see that, head on over to the Brickwall Patreon and join for just $5 a month. I'll see you next year. So long.